Have you guys ever considered starting a junk removal business? Whenever I go on YouTube, there's always all these guys doing junk removal, and they all become gurus. They all become junk removal gurus and give out advice and talk about how great the junk removal space is and how much money you're gonna make. But for some reason, they all talk about the highlights. And nobody ever really talks about like the cons of starting and running a junk removal business and how difficult it could be on the day-to-day to either scale it, keep finding consistent work, and find ways to grow it, really. So I wanted to touch on some of the cons of running a junk removal business, because no one's really talking about it. But some of the cons of running a junk removal business are how physically demanding the job really is. How you are prone to back injuries. You're always getting cut. There's always nails on the wood. You're prone to getting your feet hurt from stepping on stuff like this. So you're definitely more prone to having back issues, ruptured discs, straining your back, damaging your knees. The list goes on and on. Another risk is it's a dirty job. There's always dust everywhere, dirt. You're working around rodent poop, and you're exposing yourself to hantavirus, I believe. So besides it being physically demanding, it is also expensive to operate. Marketing is very expensive, and you will definitely be dependent of what I like to call search engine pimps, because without the Googles, the Metas, the Nextdoors, which are very expensive to acquire customers through, a lot of guys become dependent on being found through those search engines, being very costly. And if you don't become good at it or hire a company that can allow you to be profitable, that can also cause you to end up in a cycle of failure. Another thing that makes it very expensive to operate is equipment repair costs. Just running your equipment, hauling heavy items, just puts a toll on your vehicles and on your trailers. It becomes very costly. Not only that, but also insurances. You have your vehicle, commercial auto, your workman's comp insurance, your general liability insurance. And I think when you're starting off, a lot of the people that are on YouTube teaching about these things fail to mention that those are some of the costs associated with running a junk removal business. And you really don't find out until you're already deep into it. It's definitely hyped up, and it's led a lot of people to thinking that, hey, we're just gonna kill it, right? But there's a lot more costs associated with it that don't make it so good once you're already in it. And in the junk removal space, the competition just continues to get tougher and tougher. There's junk haulers coming in every day. And one of these reasons is low barrier to entry. So anybody with a truck and a trailer can be graduated to a junk hauler with one social media post. So everybody's doing it now. Another negative aspect of junk removal is the complexity of pricing a job. A lot of the guys that are operating and have been operating for a while, including ourselves, we like to price it based on the volume that it takes. But I think it's definitely more complex than that, right? Because depending on how much time it's gonna take you to retrieve the items from the house, you could end up losing your profitability if it takes too long for you to be there, because you could be moving on to other jobs. So if you take too long, longer than expected, I should say, then the price shouldn't only be based on volume, but the complexity of it. And I think that a lot of the haulers get that wrong and end up making their profit margins a lot tighter, or even negative at some instances. So always keep that into account if you're entertaining the idea of becoming a junk removal hauler. And my intention is not to be a bad news bear, but I think that a lot of the gurus fail to really educate people on the complexity and the hardships that you will be facing when starting a junk removal business. The failure rate for businesses in the US is very hard on businesses. It is very tough, and I'm not saying not to do it. I think that we should just have a better understanding and not have these expectations that we're going to be bringing in thousands of dollars every day and just putting it straight in your pocket, right? Because there's a lot more to it than just picking up junk and making tons of money off of it. Another thing that you also need when you're operating a junk removal business is that you will need to get DOT numbers, CA numbers, and motor courier permits for your vehicle. And the California Highway Patrol can stop you and inspect your vehicle and make sure that you're in compliance, that you have fire extinguishers, just different things that you're required to have to operate commercially, since you're being hired for pay. And that's one of the things that nobody really talks about when you get into this space, is that you're held to a higher standard considering that you're a commercial vehicle for hire. So whenever you're on YouTube doing research and you have these gurus just pumping you up and telling you how great junk removal is, don't get me wrong, there's those highs, but the same in the opposite direction, there are those lows. And I don't see a lot of the gurus talking about it. They want to pump you up and sell you their course, and I think that they have a different agenda. So be careful when you're on YouTube University listening to these gurus just hype you up and rah-rah-ree, if you know what I mean. So I'll finish off by saying this: if you do get into the junk removal space, don't lowball. Charge what you're worth, because at the end of the day, you're gonna need some of that money to pay for those medical expenses when you throw out your back. Thank you and have a great day.